Let's be honest. Have you ever felt like your own mind is kinda a mystery? I mean, it does these incredible things every single second, but then sometimes it just glitches in the weirdest ways. So let's dive into this and see if we can solve a few of the puzzles happening inside your head right now. Okay, here's one we've all felt. You write a super important email, you check it again, you hit send, and there it is, a huge glaring typo. What's the deal with that? Well, it turns out it's not because you're careless. Your brain is just so incredibly good at recognizing the bigger picture, the overall meaning, that it literally corrects the mistake for you. It sees what it expects to see, not what's actually there. Or how about this one? Someone gives you a phone number and you're repeating it in your head like a mantra, 555-0182, 555-0182, but then your friend asks, "Hey, what's for dinner?" And poof, it's just gone, vanished. That's your short-term memory in action, or, well, inaction. It's a perfect example of just how fragile that little mental scratch pad of ours can be.
And this one might be my favorite. You're banging your head against the wall on some tough problem. You get nowhere. Finally, you just give up, you go take a shower, and then bam! Out of absolutely nowhere, the perfect solution just arrives. That's not magic, my friend. That's a real thing called the incubation effect. It's this amazing window into how your subconscious just keeps on grinding away at a problem long after you've consciously clocked out.
So these little daily frustrations, the typos we miss, the numbers that vanish, the aha moments that show up late to the party, they might feel like just random quirks of being human, but there's so much more than that. That's right. Every single one of them is a clue, a breadcrumb. They're all pointing us toward a much deeper understanding of how our minds actually work. And like any good mystery, these clues have attracted some very, very dedicated detectives. So what do we call this field of scientific mind detectives? Well, it's the science that's basically trying to write the official user manual for the human brain. It's called cognitive psychology. This is the field that is dedicated day in and day out to figuring out the how and the why of our own minds. Everything from how you can spot a friend's face in a huge crowd to how a baby learns a new word. Basically, it's the science of you. The legendary psychologist William James really nailed it with this quote. What he's saying is, our minds aren't just these separate computers dropped into the world, they actually evolved with the world. So they're perfectly, or at least beautifully, adapted to make sense of it all. So how on earth do you study something that complex?
Well, to peek inside that so-called black box of the mind, cognitive psychologists have built up this really impressive and varied toolkit of research methods. Let's take a look at a few of their go-to tools. First up, you've got the classic controlled experiment. The lab coats, the clipboards, the whole deal. This is where researchers might change just one specific thing, say how much sleep a person gets, to see exactly how it impacts another thing, like how well they do on a memory test. It is the absolute best way to pin down cause and effect. Next, they go right to the source, the brain itself. This is psychobiological research. We're talking about putting people in brain scanners to literally watch different areas of the brain light up while they perform a task, or even studying the brain's physical structures to understand what each part does. It's pretty amazing stuff. But of course, we don't live our lives in sterile labs, so researchers also have to study our brains in the wild. Things like just observing people in their natural environments, doing deep dive case studies on unique individuals, or even using self-reports to understand how we think and solve problems in our messy, chaotic, everyday lives. And finally, we've got a really modern tool, computer simulations and artificial intelligence. Seriously, researchers build computer programs that try to mimic human thought processes. By building these models of how the mind might work, they can test out their theories and sometimes discover things about our own brains they never would have expected. Okay, so with this entire toolkit at their disposal, what have these cognitive detectives actually found? Well, they've started to map out the vast, incredibly intricate territories of our mental world. A few of the main continents on this mental map include perception. That's how we turn raw data from our eyes and ears into meaningful stuff. Then there is attention, our mental spotlight that decides what we focus on. We've got memory, which is like this massive personal library. And of course, language, our amazing tool for sharing ideas. And right at the heart of it all is thinking, what some call the crown jewel of cognition. But here's what makes it so exciting. This map is far from finished. It's constantly being updated and redrawn. Cognitive psychology is a super dynamic field, and scientists are still hashing out some of the most fundamental questions about how our minds really work. And one of the biggest debates of all is the classic nature versus nurture. Are we born with our mental abilities already hardwired, or are we shaped almost entirely by our environment and our experiences? The real answer, as you might guess, is probably a complicated mix of both. But this huge question is what keeps pushing researchers forward.
So, where did this all come from? And more importantly, where is it all going? A super quick peek at its history tells a really fascinating story and gives us a hint about what's next. People have been trying to understand the mind forever. I mean, all the way back to the ancient Greek philosophers. But then, for a big chunk of the 20th century, a theory called behaviorism took over, and it basically said studying the mind was unscientific. But that all changed in the 1950s with the cognitive revolution, thanks in part to the rise of computers. And today, well, today we're deep in the neuroscience era, where technology lets us literally watch thought happen in real time. And one of the most powerful ideas to come out of that revolution is still with us today, the computer metaphor. Now, we know our brains don't work exactly like a Dell laptop, but thinking about concepts like processing and memory storage and networks, it gave scientists a whole new language to describe and understand the mind. So why does any of this stuff actually matter to you in your life? Because honestly, understanding your own mind is like having a superpower. It can help you find better ways to learn, to solve problems more effectively, and just to appreciate the insane complexity behind every single thought you have. This isn't just some dusty academic subject. It's the science of us. And that leaves us with one last really mind-bending question. As our tools for looking inside the brain get more and more powerful, as we map its every pathway in unbelievable detail, what new mysteries about ourselves are we about to uncover? It really seems like the ultimate exploration isn't out there in space, but the one that's happening right now, between our own ears.